I think that you love what you do when you know how to do it, whether it's something the world sees as important or something it sees as drudgery. What's stopping you from tackling the stuff you have to do is not really knowing how to do it, how to get started, how to make it a habit. Do your best to do each thing competently, not perfectly, and add your own little touches for your own and the Lord's enjoyment. Excerpt from Competence versus Perfectionism by Lila Lawler.
In today's episode, we'll be exploring the importance of cleanliness in our homes, not just for the sake of tidiness itself, but to serve the well-being of everyone within our walls. We remember the proverb, where there are no ox in the stable is clean, and that reminds us that productive lives do come with a bit of a mess. But could we be neglecting an important thing? Could we even sometimes be using this very passage to excuse ourselves from real duties that the Lord has given us? Now, in today's society, where cleaning products and practices are increasingly complicated by modern regulation, the simple act of maintaining a clean home seems more challenging than it once was. For example, key ingredients in cleaning products like trisodium phosphate, which once helped make soaps and detergents effective, have been removed or restricted due to environmental concerns. But these changes, meant to improve our environment, haven't necessarily led to better or safer cleaning methods. Instead, we now have endless rows of extra stain removers and boosters just to achieve what one reliable product used to do. And so in today's episode, we'll be talking about the war on cleanliness. We'll be talking about the importance of cleanliness, how we can recover some of these practices, not excuse ourselves from these important duties, and truly balance the mess that comes with productivity as well as serving everybody in the home. We hope it's helpful.
Welcome back to Bright Hearth, everybody. Lexi and Brian are here for an episode on the topic of
Cleanliness.
Cleanliness? So
The war on cleanliness
that's right.
is
That's
the
what
title.
you called it.
Because, man, what a pithy title.
The war on cleanliness.
Doesn't it just make you want to listen to what?
Clean a toilet?
The war on cleanliness. What?
You know,
no, this is an important one.
I think this is going to be somewhat of a controversial topic.
You know us, babe. We've never been controversial before.
I think
so
it's
this would be our
actually
first
going
time.
to challenge the crunchier among us.
Oh, I didn't
mad
think
at me.
about that. We might get in trouble with some of the crunchy ones. Just know our
As
crunchy
if I
credentials.
Don't know how our microbiome is disrupted.
Our crunchy credentials are somewhat, intact, I think. But maybe we'll tarnish them a little bit. But anyway, guys, welcome back to another episode of Bright Hearth. We are, in this season, of course, talking about truth, goodness, and beauty, building homes that radiate and cultivate and defend these things. We just wrapped up a series on the 4 cardinal virtues, and we figured we would take a turn from, that there was a lot of practical stuff in there, but it was also very much like theoretical. There's a lot of more philosophical, theological ideas there, and get into something really, really practical that we've been thinking about, and even, doing some shifts here and there in our own home on cleanliness. So this is a real practical episode. It's one that actually I found really interesting. And maybe I'll start us by just sharing a little bit more about, we talked about it in the cold open a little bit, but the government war on cleanliness.
Maybe the crunchies can get behind it that way. All you
Well,
libertarians can be like, bleach it up, down with the man.
That's right. There you go. Well, the government does have a way of consistently, in the name of environmentalism, there have been many regulatory moves that have doubtful or dubious actual environmental benefit. But one thing they definitely accomplish is they make things less good. Like an example would be air conditioners. So air conditioners are constantly, every couple decades or every, I think they actually are just doing this again, where they're outlawing the refrigerant, the coolant, I think it is, that you're allowed to use in the air conditioner. And so now all these HVAC companies, they have to roll out these new ones. And I won't be surprised if the new ones don't work as well as the old ones. If they're more complicated, less reliable, and add expense for consumers. But they did this with household cleaners and trisodium phosphate and other detergents that basically, in the name of reducing like algal blooms, algae,
which there is no evidence actually proving what they believe is true, just like
did.
Climate change.
And there's like very little reason to believe that these things in our soap products were actually causing algae blooms and things like that. But they outlawed them. And one of the results was that it became so much harder to clean things. Like if you talk to someone who was alive or a homemaker before this period, and you say like, was it genuinely easier to keep clothes clean, for example, in a washer and dryer?
Well, so the article that for me confirmed things. I have been saying for a few years to a select few friends, I'm pretty sure vinegar is a psyop.
Using vinegar to clean.
Yes. And it was confirmed with this article from, how would you say that? The Mises Institute? Mises Institute.
It's like a libertarian.
Why Everything is Dirtier. It's an article by Jeffrey A. Tucker. Why am I even saying this?
No, say it.
Pregnancy brain is... No, I don't remember. I don't know what I was going to say.
Don't edit this out, Ray. We need the people to know what it's like to podcast after 6:30 p.m.
No, it's just like pregnancy really set in this.
It just hit. It just hit. You guys just heard it hit.
What was I saying?
You were saying that article really sold it for you that vinegar was a psyop.
I know, but... And
then you were going to explain the article because the article is really important. We'll share it in the comments, but
I don't remember.
It's an article. Okay, I'll jump in here. It's called Why Everything is Dirty, and it is about what we just talked about, this like removal of certain detergents and things within cleaning elements.
What did you say before that, though? Because
we were talking about vinegar.
Okay.
Yeah, and so...
Oh, I know what I was going to say. Okay, so I was reading in this article, he was talking about his childhood and memories he had. And it was interesting because the very first time I read this, I was like, this is what it was like to be at my grandmother's house.
Yeah. What did he say?
Well, one of the things that really stood out to me was just how white everything was. And I think that's been like a major battle as the kids have gotten older and going to school, is how do you keep white polos white? You can't if you're not using certain products. And that was part of what was starting to really frustrate me in homemaking, was like, these are one-time use polos. Sometimes it feels like when they come home from school. And so that part just really stood out to me in remembering. And even as I would think about my home and the things that frustrated me before I kind of started changing things up in the last couple of years, I think part of my discontent was knowing this is not how things were in my grandmother's home, but not knowing why. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And it's not like my grandma had 4 kids. My grandma cooked a lot from scratch. My grandma gardened. She had an active but very small home, but it was always frustrating. Like, I don't remember grandma, because we lived with my grandma a lot growing up, and I don't remember having to clean nearly as much as I have to clean, you know?
Let me read a little paragraph or two from this article because it helps get at what we're talking about here. So he's saying that he's talking in this section of the article about how laundries, like laundromats and laundry detergent, no longer cleans clothes. And so he asks, does government care? If you read between the lines in the almost candid moments of government statements, you can see what is going on here. In 2009, Clive Davies, a product engineer with the EPA, granted an interview with the New York Times that focused on home products. You might wonder what a product engineer is doing working for the government rather than the private sector. This interview shows why. Every one of the questions he has asked concerned the effects of home products on the environment. Not even one actually probed the essential question of whether the products actually work. Mr. Davies' job is to decide whether to affix a supposedly valued designation to the products designed for the environment. It's pretty clear that anything that actually cleans, washes, or scrubs probably can't earn the designation. An empty box that claims to be detergent stands a better chance of gaining the government seal of approval than a detergent that actually works. Then we get to the end of the interview in which he is actually candid about the goal, the elimination of detergents, meaning the elimination of clean. Davies concedes that this would be the best possible result. And what does he recommend instead? Vinegar and elbow grease, the old-fashioned phrase for scrub harder. Thus spake the government. That's the future as these bureaucrats see it. It's It's a future of elbow grease, meaning manual labor unassisted by products of free enterprise like machines and detergents that work, end
So
quote.
I had been thinking this for years, and there was a marked difference when our 5th child was potty trained.
Yeah.
Nothing stayed clean anymore. And I pretty much have used, well, I had at that point, mostly vinegar on everything and Norwex rags. And it was just, as I was reading that, I was just thinking, like, that's literally been my experience, is more elbow grease, and it's not working. Everything is dirtier.
Yeah. So we this episode, we might call it, you know what really grinds my gears?
Well, I have
When the
I have
government
more
gets-
thoughts than just this. I do think this is
I know,
part
I
of
know.
it, though.
So related to this as well, before we get into those applicational stuff, setting the stage a little bit more, just to get about the war on cleanliness in general.
Mhm.
So some of you heard my rant about the washer and dryer. Did I talk about this on Bright Hearts?
You mean
yet?
our washer? and
Our
dryer?
dryer.
I don't know.
I don't think I did. FlowSense. Did I rant about FlowSense here, guys? I'm old enough that if I did, I can repeat
I
myself.
was pretty charitable. I gave them 4 to 6 months.
You gave who?
The washer and dryer.
Oh, the one when we moved in?
Yes.
Yeah, we moved in and so we moved houses and there was a washer and dryer set here already.
Digital.
And we'd used Speed Queen washers and dryers before because they're much simpler. Some of the models are much less focused on like using less water, and they're more focused on just products that will work for 20 years.
Anything that uses less water is a scam. Don't buy it.
Yeah. This cold and flu season, fortify your defenses naturally with the King's Ridge elderberry syrup and elderberry products. They grow the freshest elderberries on their Indiana farm, cold press them into the tastiest syrup around. Their products are packed with antioxidants and vitamins to boost your immune system. Use code BRIGHTHEARTH, all caps, BRIGHTHEARTH, for 10% off your first order at tkrfarm.com. The King's Ridge elderberry syrup. Taste the difference, help push back the curse. That's tkrfarm.com. Looking for a gift that will last for 1,000 generations? Check out rootedpineshomestead.com, where they work together as a family economy to create natural wooden toys and herbal remedies. Coated with only coconut oil and beeswax, their toys are safe enough for the mouths of babes. Use code BRIGHTHEARTH, that's all caps BRIGHTHEARTH, at checkout for 10% off your first order. And there's a link in the show notes for that below. Are you a Christian struggling to find companies that align with your values and beliefs? Squirrelly Joe's has you covered for all your coffee needs. All their coffee is hand-selected and roasted fresh every day by a family of fellow believers. Try them out and you'll savor exceptional coffee while knowing that your investment supports a company committed to following God's teachings and upholding truth and righteousness, ensuring your hard-earned money contributes to the growth of God's kingdom. Stop giving your hard-earned dollars to pagans who support evil. We have a fantastic offer for our listeners. Your first bag of coffee is free. All you have to do is cover the shipping. So head over to squirrellyjoes.com/bright, that link's in the description, to claim your free bag of coffee. Here at Bright Hearth, we're all about helping you not turn into a girl if you're a boy, or into a boy if you're a girl. You know what might be doing that to you? The soap in your shower. And so we are pleased to introduce you to IndigoSundrySoap.com, link in the description, of course, who can provide you with soaps and more without any of the nasty stuff. And because they love you, they're giving you a discount code, guys. So use code, all caps, Bright Hearth, for 10% off your whole order. Support this great Christian company and support Bright Hearth Podcast at the same time. Check them out at IndigoSundrySoap.com. And of course, that link is in the description. So, Lexi said, this washer and dryer with our volume of like, how many kids do we have? Do we have 9, 10 kids now? 16? 17? I can't remember. We have like 17 kids. So for us, a washer and dryer that you would traditionally buy at Home Depot would last about 30 minutes because we do like 57 loads of laundry a day. And so we had at our old house.
I literally kind of did like oh, you guys are cute. You'll be here maybe 6 months.
Yeah, and they're like they look all fancy and modern. And we had at our previous house gotten Speed Queen stuff because it's like about twice as much money up front, but they literally last
They're like
for
laundromat
20 years.
type.
They do make laundromat ones even. So lo and behold, our dryer stops working. It keeps throwing this error code. And I actually didn't even try to troubleshoot it at first. I just immediately went on Facebook Marketplace. I found a guy in Salt Lake City that was selling a Speed Queen set for like $500 for a set, which was amazing. Immediately just said, can you deliver it? Got it. And then when I was moving and I plugged it back in, and I was like, this dryer's working again. This old one, the one that came with the house. And it's not that old. I wonder what's up with it. And so I looked up the code, and it turns out what's happening is that it has this safety feature that is supposed to automatically detect blockages in the air vent. And I was like, oh, maybe we have a blockage. No. You could eat off of the flippin' tube. Okay? It's clean. It's clean. So I go online and I find just endless people talking about how it's like this flow sense feature is, unless it has like the perfect ducting, it will throw a false code and it just won't work. You can't override it.
Exactly. It's not that you can't just keep using it. It will not work.
It shuts down. It becomes an expensive brick. So this is yet another example of like, this is all the planned obsolescence, the endless safety and environmental features on appliances. If you have a real family and you actually use your appliances and you have more than one kid and you run your dishwasher more than once every 4 days, it seems like any appliance that you buy, unless you're very careful about what you buy and buy commercial stuff and just the right brands, they really do have like a 6-month to 18-month lifespan.
Yeah, they do.
And you just burn through thousands of dollars on this stuff. And then you go put your detergent in it and it doesn't get anything clean. Mm-mm. And you feel like you're taking crazy pills. And then they're like, well, just use vinegar. And so, you're a good crunchy mom and you start using vinegar and you're like, vinegar doesn't clean stuff.
And vinegar, a lot of handymen will tell you vinegar actually ruins appliances.
Yeah, so you start vinegarating.
So it doesn't clean and then it's actually just breaking your stuff.
So you're kind of like in this position of you want to be cognizant of the chemicals and things you're using in your home. And you also want to have things clean. And so there's a little bit of like a pulling your hair out moment.
Okay, and there were two other things. So my mom, up until recently, she has worked for a naturopathic pharmacy for years. And one of the biologists that worked with her saw her spraying her keyboard down with alcohol one day. Okay, so these are an entire environment of crunchies.
Yeah.
And he looks at her and he says, why are you doing that? You know that doesn't work. And she was like, what do you mean? I've always done this. Of course it works. And he explained this whole long reason why. And so that was kind of the first thing that tipped me off. And I know there's many of you that are like disbelieving because you have one newborn baby and you've probably never actually cleaned anything super dirty in your entire life yet. But then we got norovirus. Do you remember that? After
I remember. The great norovirus year.
Was it Winnie or Cyril? One of the kids. I was literally like a few days postpartum. I thought I was going to die from this. We were like starting on the second round of noro. And if you know noro, it can just keep being passed around and around when you have a big family. And my mom had told me, again, my mom is very crunchy. She had said, Lexi, you need to bleach the house. It's too late to use oregano oil. If you catch it early enough, you can use oregano oil, but you need to bleach the house. When I worked at the hospital, which she also did work in trauma med for a long time, the only thing that would kill norovirus was bleach. So I bleached the house and we got better. But it was like two things that were kind of tipping me off to, I don't think this is exactly what they want us to think it is. And then we were just sick constantly after COVID in a way that was very unusual too. And that's when I started saying, no, I think vinegar is a government psyop.
So there were a couple things that you've done over the last, year or two, things you've reintroduced. Just maybe briefly walk through those and then let's talk about some of the application stuff.
Okay, so some of it also was reading Lila talking about like you need to become competent, and I was just constantly frustrated. And there is a reality of, and maybe we can talk about this principle a little bit, of when you're a homemaker and you're cleaning and organizing, which are two different skills, you have to live within your means. Meaning, if you live in a small house, and the reality is you're going to live in a small house, you can't have 4,000 square foot house items. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You have to downsize. So I think that can be a huge clutter issue for people where they simply just will not accept that I need to do the hard work of purging right now.
Mhm.
So I think that's a big issue that women can run into. But the other one is just growing in the skill set of it. And that was something that I kind of had to admit was like, this isn't working. And because this has been like my almost decade long trajectory of cleaning, I need to like up my game with my skill set in this area. So I had talked to some other moms of a lot of kids. One of them had actually told me, and this is kind of where it kind of starts to get rabbit traily. One of them had told me she had a friend of 10 kids, I believe. And the friend had basically told her, like, if you're going to have a lot of children, you better have a clean house because you're saying something with your family. You're basically showing to the world that a lot of children is chaos and filth, or a lot of children is joy and hard work, but it's beautiful. And that really was convicting to me because I think a lot of us can get the household for the people, not the people for the household, but the people in the household need clean toilets.
Yeah, we can get into this place where we say the Proverbs 14:4, where there's no oxen, where there are no oxen, the manger is clean, but abundant crops come by the strength of the ox. The people for the household. We've talked about this before.
Yes.
Not having households that are like museums that nobody's allowed to touch anything or nobody's allowed to be in there. That's a genuine ditch.
Yes.
But what you're pointing out is another ditch, which is basically saying the people for the household, therefore I'm actually going to be totally fine with homemaking mediocrity, total untidiness, filthiness everywhere, not adequately cleaning things. And then the household's actually not serving the people in the other direction.
And to be fair, you and I had kind of gotten to a place where you had told me after Alfred was born, like, I get that the space is actually the problem because I was to the point where I was like, I can't throw anything else out. That's like my only.
We were full.
Yeah. So that is real too, where husbands have to realize that their wives can't make bricks without straw, sort of a thing.
Yeah.
But that's not most situations. When in my mind, if I walk in and see a dirty, filthy house, that's not most situations. And I think a lot of this breakdown is generational too.
Yeah, I think you're right that the previous generations, many of them had a high tidiness, cleanliness care, and some of it has broken down in the newer generations.
Mm-hmm.
Some of that might have had to do with a lot of smaller families as well, like the 2 or 3 kids.
I think you can get away with more when you have less kids.
Yeah, sure.
But
and maybe some of these cleaning things also genuinely contributed.
Yeah.
Because when a washer and a dryer were built to just wash and dry stuff and use as much electricity and water as that takes, and a fridge was made to work for 20 years and
you guys, this is where I'm saying you guys probably think I've lost my crunchy credentials. I don't freak out about some of this stuff because I actually trust that as we move forward in history, people will be the answer to some of these problems.
Yeah, they'll
like
actually invent.
Bleach not being the greatest for you, using less electricity actually efficiently.
Can you explain, I mean, practically? So you're dunking on vinegar a little bit here.
Yes.
A little bit, and by that I mean a lot.
Okay.
Talk about some of the actual things you're using. So we actually, you can buy
I'm
TSP.
trying to tackle the things that are in women's minds though right now that's actually keeping them from cleaning their house.
Yeah, I mean, but we've circled it. Why don't you explain
Okay.
a few of those practical things that...
But if those pop up again in my brain, I can talk about those some more.
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
I want to get some of those out there because right now...
So like, what did I do to change this then?
Yeah, what do you
Okay.
actually do differently?
Okay, so I don't even know how I found some of these things. But one of them, this was after, maybe it was in 2020. It's an account on Instagram called Go Clean Co. C-O. And she created a handbook that was like, oh, so you're stuck at home all day now and you realize your house is filthy. Here's a basic handbook on cleaning it. Nothing crunchy. There's like no crunchy materials in there whatsoever. So I know where I found out about that. I found out about her through Marissa Froze. This is another thing that was just another, she was a homesteader in British Columbia, I think. Super duper crunchy, off grid, lived with her kids, homeschooled, Charlotte Mason, everything. And she actually ended up passing away last year of breast cancer. And after about a year-long chemo treatment, she started going through her house, deep cleaning it, because she knew like it was one of the biggest ways she could serve her family was keeping the environment clean, even though they were going through such a hard time of taking care of her. And she was talking about how she used this recipe from Go Clean Co. to clean everything. And it was, oh my gosh, it was bleach and Tide powder. And she got so much flack for it. People were telling her, like, don't you know you're dying of cancer? You're giving yourself more cancer. Why are you even going through treatment if now you're using bleach in your house? And I just remember, and she was a Christian, by the way. And which I immediately thought the same thing. I was like, this is so counterproductive. Why are you doing this? But she said, she was like, you know what? Do you guys realize the reason I have cancer is because I was put in a Pfizer trial as a child. This has nothing to do with what I'm bringing into my house right now. It's what was literally injected into my body as a young child. And it was such a helpful contrast of like, just that perspective. Like we were all jumping down her throat. I never said anything personally. I just thought it. But just,
I was going to say, that doesn't sound like you at all. Jump wild and in the comment section.
No.
Sheesh.
I was so thankful though that she addressed that, because it gave a lot of perspective to like, the gift of a clean house is health to my family. We have been to hell and back in the last year with this horrible diagnosis. The least I can do is gift them a clean house. And just really starting to realize, okay, that is a form of health as well that most people really do overlook, because we have been so led to believe in low standards of living because of the government, because of lots of things, but honestly, a lot of it's because of the government, that we're not thinking in the other categories of, wait a second, maybe I can bleach my toilet and just open the window for 15 minutes, you know? So it was through Marissa that I found Go Clean Co. I loved her specifically because I realized I didn't have the right tools on hand specifically for cleaning. So she has a lot of reviews of tools in her highlights that I watched thoroughly to pick a couple of different things. One of them was a vacuum, because we had a shop vac. We went through so many shop vacs. That's another thing. We have issues with vacuums, you guys.
Yeah, we do.
We went through so many shop vacs, and I finally just wanted something that was light enough for the kids to carry around. And so I watched her reviews, picked one based on that. And, it was really helpful. I do still to this day use her recipe of Tide and bleach. She has a little handbook that you can buy. I don't know where it is at the moment. That was helpful on just like my skill set in day-to-day cleaning, because I've always had a cleaning schedule that I've stuck to keep things. I don't know, Brian. I feel like I have been relatively clean over the years.
Yeah.
It's been more of the deep cleaning and like large scale organization that I have struggled with on and on for different reasons. So to tackle that though, I got, I don't have it on me. I think it's called the Home Keeping Binder. And it is a binder that is a 12-month to-do list basically on all things deep cleaning inside and outside the house. And that really helped me have a game plan. Like on a yearly basis, I'm hopefully going to touch everything in my house, which I didn't know how to do before. And part of that for me was just that I had one other sibling growing up and we moved every few years, which kind of has its own built-in purge to it as a military family. So it wasn't like my mom's fault or anything. It just, that information didn't get passed down because we led a different type of lifestyle. So that has been so helpful. I think I'm in my 3rd year of following that now. And the reason I like that is because I don't panic about like lingering, like deep storage type messes, because I know I'll get there this year sometime. But it also, and a more like fun note, it helps me hone in on where I'm going to be designing in my house. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So I'm not like constantly sporadically spending money all over the house on different things I want to decorate. If I'm working on the entryway this month, that's all I'm working on. So that's been a really, really helpful one for me. Just the reality of needing a degreaser, I think this is the one thing that most crunchy people know deep down. At least all of my friends have all admitted this at church, that Cascade is still the best thing to use. I use TSP now in the dishwasher, but like soaps for dishes specifically, especially when you do cook a lot of traditional food, you're cooking with a lot of high fat that gets all over the cupboards, it gets all over the counter, it gets all over the hood, all over the stovetop. And you really need, I have tried a lot of natural degreasers and nothing works as fast as Dawn power spray. So those were the two big things for me, was bringing in the Tide and the bleach cleaner. And I don't use those every single week.
And you don't use it on every single thing. You're not slathering it on everything. It's
no,
for
I do still
things.
have, it's your grandma's recipe. Actually, it's like a vinegar, ammonia. I have a more natural blend that I use for a lot of things.
For like day-to-day normal stuff.
Yes.
That doesn't need anything heavy duty.
No. But this is one of the biggest observations that I really do have, is it is genuinely faster to clean with conventional cleaning products. It just is. It is.
Like that power spray is so good.
I am able to keep up on a much bigger house with the same amount of time as like a house half the size. And that's actually cleaning more here. Like I'm doing more in the same amount of time here because I have switched over so much stuff.
So you're using like the bleach stuff, mainly bathrooms.
I do use it in bathrooms, yeah.
Where else do you use it?
This is another thing I wanted to point out. If you're frustrated, if there's like a part of your house that you feel frustrated or embarrassed by, or just annoyed to walk into that room, you need to consider putting that on your weekly schedule, which I know you hate the fact that I just said that, but you really do need to do that. So for me, about 2 years ago, I realized like once a month deep cleaning of the kitchen was no longer enough. I needed to do it on a weekly basis. So I still don't do it every single week. I'd say about every other week where I will get out the bleach in the Tide, because I can just tell things just get more grimy and yucky. And I just literally don't want to live with that. I'm a happier, healthier person when it's clean.
And this might not be, I don't know if this is the thing that did it, but we have been less sick in the last 12 to 18 months.
Yes, we have been.
Than in the entire history of our life with kids.
It is 100% true.
Like, and I mean like colds and all the normal stuff. Mm-hmm. We haven't. And now, not only am I going to now jinx us and we're going to get sick, it's like right when I need to record final vocals for the Psalms album. So that will suck.
It's also because there's a new COVID vaccine out. So,
but genuinely, since I think some of this lines up time-wise.
I think it does too.
That we actually stopped getting sick so much. Mm-hmm. And like, I've wondered if it's the bleach.
I only found, so we changed our cleaning stuff probably a little over 2 years ago now. I only found this article like 2 months ago.
The TSP part. Yeah.
Yes. So it's not.
Can you explain that? Like, you bought TSP and we just said it's outlawed. So the thing is, it's outlawed from these products. Mm-hmm. But you can still go buy the compound, trisodium phosphate. I
think it's outlawed to be used in like laundry facilities itself. Yeah. But yeah, you can go buy it. I was reading Lila's Summa Domestica in her section on laundry, and she made this small passing comment about like, well, we all know that natural laundry detergent doesn't work anyways, which I agree with. And she's pretty crunchy. So I tweeted at her and I said, so what do you use instead? Because, she had a whole bunch of boys. They're all grown now. But she's the one that sent me this article to begin with. And she ended up saying she now uses it's kind of confusing. STTP is for laundry. TSP is for dishwashers.
Yeah.
And I know I've had friends that they said that the TSP ruined their dishwasher. It hasn't done that to mine. I think it's only been one friend of mine that's happened with so far. All my other friends that switched over, they've been loving it. It's really cheap, really affordable. But I think I just got them both on Amazon. He says in the article, you can go get it at Home Depot and stuff.
They're not outlawed in the sense of you can't get them all at all. It's just there are regulations on companies including them in certain products.
Yes, businesses and government overreach, all that stuff.
And so it's one of those weird things where you can literally go buy it and you could even add it. And all these companies, they desperately are trying to come up with formulas that work. But the problem is, a lot of the time, whenever they come up with a formula that works, the EPA then outlaws that one. Like, they just keep outlawing compounds.
And she said this when she posted the article. She basically said, like, women are fearful and they give in to everything crunchy because of marketing and because they don't know basic chemistry. And that was really like, okay, this makes sense to me, because if you understand, like he says in that article, this is a natural product, quote unquote natural. I know that can mean a myriad of things, but so much of crunchy marketing is just that. It's marketing. You guys should go follow, I think it's nutrition.elements on Instagram. She is going to blow your mind on some of the EWG ratings for things like Herbal Essence, Garnier, comparing them to crunchy companies like Native is an example I can think of, or Accure. They're the same ratings. It's literally just marketing using different words. So, and that part has been eye-opening in the last over the summer, really realizing, and I knew that already. Like, I've always known just because something is crunchy doesn't believe it works.
Yeah, greenwashing is a real thing.
It is. And he says in that article, he even says that is the government is wanting to promote all of these products, but they're not actually answering the question of, does it work? And as a Christian, that's why this is important to me in the home, is because the homes matter, the people in the homes matter. Beauty does matter in the home. Filthiness is offensive to the senses God has given us. And so we should be asking ourselves as Christian homemakers, but does it work? I don't care if you're scared. Your fear over getting cancer from bleach is a bigger issue than you actually using the bleach to clean the toilet. Does that make sense?
Yeah, like don't drink the bleach, guys,
No.
but using it on your toilet will be fine.
But yeah, you have to realize that that's why Christian business owners should be asking, but does my product actually work? Yeah.
Yeah, so one point I think that's also worth noting is that a lot of the changes that you're talking about as well, there's a distinction between something that you're using responsibly to clean a surface and then like things that you'd put in your kid's mouth or things that you would wash the kid with, right? Like I'm a big fan of our Indigo Sundries friends because they make all natural soaps the traditional way. But the thing is, those actually work. Like those aren't a green, organic, crunchy alternative to soap that work 10% as good and cost 8 times as much. That's just going back to the way that people made soap for thousands of years. Even their Castile soap with, they pure olive oil is the only oil that traditional Castile soap uses, and that's what they make it with. And so you go through and it's the point is that it works, it's safe. You can put it on your skin every day. It's not going to hurt you. But there's also a distinction between, like, you don't have to go whole hog one way or the other is kind of the point.
I think another change we had was following Dr. Ellie's tooth. You were like, why am I using Crest, Lexi?
Well, I was just like, all of a sudden, because listen, guys, I don't think about the toothpaste I use that often. So I was just living my life for 26 years using toothpaste. And then one day, my toothpaste was gone, and there was some other substance that I was using that seemed to be supposed to be toothpaste, and it tasted altogether different, and it was like a whole thing, and I was like, I guess this is my life. I guess I use this toothpaste now. And then one day, like a couple months ago, that was gone, and then their toothpaste, the normal toothpaste, was back. It was like I had gone through a time slip. And it wasn't because I was offended by it, but I was like, babe.
I think my dad might still be refusing to use Crest.
I was like, what happened? What's going on?
We've had some confirmed, what do they call cavities in one of our kids. And I've been kind of researching over the last year how to heal it naturally. And a lot of it is just like a lifelong commitment to no sugar and no gluten, which I am 100% unwilling to do. So I had a friend send me Dr. Ellie's tooth protocol, and she said, I think you might find this helpful. Well, Dr. Ellie is obviously a female. She went to dental school in the UK. I think it was in the 60s. And she was kind of one of the first group of ladies that was sent to dental school. And she said, it was actually really funny because she said, I don't think they believed we could actually do it because our needed credentials were higher than the male doctors. So she actually had to accomplish higher level Latin and chemistry. But she said she realized the chemistry actually made her a better dentist once she got into dentistry school because she was not prone to the marketing like the other dentists were because she understood the chemistry behind the really basic or like the original formulas from some of these companies like Listerine and Crest, that the other doctors wanted all the newfangled recipes. And she understood the chemistry, like Lila was saying. If you understand the basic chemistry behind it and how and why it works and where it is or is not dangerous to be used, then you're not prone to all these newfangled marketing products that could genuinely be more harmful for us. So that was another tip off to me of like, some of these products do genuinely work. The original Crest is remineralizing toothpaste. You don't need the $24 tube of toothpaste. As a matter of fact, they're finding out a lot of the hydroxypate is like damaging to the brain barrier thing now because the particles are so small. So we have, I think that this is where it's different with like, to me, something like tallow is so old school that it's time tested, but a lot of the new crunchy, what would you call them? Like technologies, they haven't been around long enough for us to even know.
Yeah, like the capability of isolating a compound from a plant to such purity.
Yes.
That it's the equivalent of
it's unusual in history.
The chemical compound from 70,000 tulips in one bottle. Or, that kind of technology.
Are you not like distilling?
Not just distilling, but isolating a specific chemical compound all the way to its isolate. Like some of that hasn't been it hasn't been possible.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the, I think it's actually the Black Swan guy, Nassim Taleb.
Mm-hmm.
He talks about a rule that it's not necessarily, it's a fine rule, but you could take it too far. Where he like won't eat or drink something that hasn't been eaten or drunk for 2,000 years or something like that.
Interesting. Okay.
So, there is a heuristic of time testing.
Yeah.
That's what I mean about the indigo soap is like, I
agree.
It's centuries and centuries and centuries of people doing something. Are you tired of not feeling well and of having your doctor treat your symptoms without taking the time to investigate what's really going on? Rebecca Belch at Live Oak Integrative Health is here to help. Rebecca is passionate about helping women and families achieve the health that God designed in our bodies to have. With more than 20 years of experience as a critical care and labor and delivery nurse, she now serves as a licensed practitioner of functional medicine. Her goal is to address the root causes of dysfunction in your body and to help give your body what it needs so that you can create a legacy of health that extends to your children and grandchildren. She provides a wide range of testing options to uncover your underlying health issues, such as fatigue, weight gain, and gut problems. Then she works with you to develop a plan that focuses on nutrition, hormone balance, and long-term habits to promote enduring health. She also specializes in health for women who will become or currently are pregnant. This time is often overlooked and is the most important window to create generational health. Check out her website to book a free discovery call right now and get a $50 discount on any of her service options. You can do this on her website, liveoakintegrativehealth.com. Hey friends, let's talk about Gray Toad Tallow. They're a family-owned small business dedicated to making products that nourish your skin with the purest, most wholesome ingredients. For centuries, people have experienced the moisturizing and healing properties of tallow, and Gray Toad Tallow is committed to sharing these benefits their family has experienced with you. Besides their commitment to offering you a healthy skincare option for your family, Gray Toad Tallow's desire is to remain affordable and accessible to be a blessing to others. For more information, and to try a balm sample pack, visit graytoadtallow.com. That link will be in the description along with this code, which we would urge you not to forget to use for 15% off your order. That code is all caps, BRIGHT15, BRIGHT15 for 15% off your order, and we truly appreciate your business. If you have a young family like me, you work hard every day to ensure you care for your wife and kids. Providing for a young family is challenging, with rising costs. It doesn't look like things are going to change in the future. Maybe you've thought like I have, I wish I'd started investing years ago. My family would be in a better financial position. As they say about trees, the best time to plant a tree was 10 years ago. The second best time is today. Don't let the benefit of time go to waste on your financial planning for retirement or inheritance for your generations. Joe Garrissey with Backwards Planning Financial has been working with us to make the best plan for our family. He's a Christian who works with one of the largest and most trusted financial service companies in the world. He's been helping Lexi and I work towards our financial goals and helps us navigate the complexities of the markets. Whether you have millions in assets or you're just starting to invest, Joe Garrissey can help you reach your goals to grow the kingdom and leave a good legacy for your generations. Visit backwardsplanningfinancial.com. That's backwardsplanningfinancial.com. Or call 615-767-2555 to speak with Joe to prepare for the future. The testimonials presented may not be representative of the experience of other clients and are not a guarantee of future performance or success. Want to start reading the Puritans but don't know where to begin? Puritan Treasures for Today from Reformation Heritage Books makes the riches of these godly writers of old accessible for the modern reader. With updated language and helpful introductions, these classic works from John Owens, Jeremiah Burroughs, and more are the perfect starting point for the curious reader. Learn more about the Puritan Treasures for Today at heritagebooks.org/Puritan Treasures and use code BRIGHTHEART for 10% off your order. That's BRIGHTHEART, all lowercase, no spaces, for 10% off your order. A lot of modern health-conscious, crunchy, organic stuff is using technology. It's not necessarily bad by itself, but it's doing things that haven't been possible till very recently and hasn't been wide-scale tested to the degree that, people will lose their minds if you tell them. For example, we talked about this the other day, that aspartame is one of the most tested substances in food science history. So in people, aspartame causes cancer, and there have been studies where they've given mice or rats like 100 times the dose of aspartame that would be possible for a human to have. And then they might get tumors or something like that. But the reality is, if you took 100 times of almost anything, like salt, you would die. If you took 100 times the amount of water that you normally drink in a day, you would literally die. So aspartame is extremely tested. I'm not pro aspartame. There's actually other problems with it, like blood sugar problems. But there's an example of a non-crunchy substance that actually is probably safe. And in terms of just, it's not going to poison or kill you, most likely.
I've said this in other contexts, like Christian women need to be thinking women. We can't just buy into something whole hog like the crunchy bandwagon and think that as a whole is Christian.
Yeah, because you're easily manipulable when you do that.
Yes, that's the thing, is women do not understand. You are being marketed to all of the time. And it's not until you have a passel of children, a very limited budget, and actual health issues that you don't have time to waste anymore.
Or budget when your husband's going, man, I really want to support my wife in homemaking, but she's insisting on buying $24 toothpaste.
Yes.
And she's freaking out and saying, if we don't, everyone's going to get cancer.
Yes.
And that there's some manipulation happening there when it comes to those things, because people didn't get cancer at the same rates and also didn't use $24 toothpaste.
Yes.
In previous eras.
Here's one example for me right now. I haven't talked about this a lot, but I have had like histamine issues on and off for about 4 years that get really, really bad in the wintertime. And I decided this year, and I've tried everything crunchy you can imagine. I worked with a homeopath last year, but it has almost gone towards like anaphylaxis, other really weird, concerning type reactions in the last year specifically. So this winter I was kind of like, I just had to admit, like, tallow isn't going to be the way for me this
like
year.
Your eye did
it's
that
not
thing?
working. My eyeball literally swelled out of my socket.
It was the creepiest thing I've seen in a long time.
So I'm telling myself, like, you do great in the summer, Lexi, with olive oil. I will lather my body in olive oil and sit in the sun and use my tallow. But in the winter, you're going to have to bring out, I don't even want to say it because everyone's going to freak out.
Tell us, babe. Confess.
Pond's cold cream. It feels so nice.
See, I don't even know what that is. So
I know.
You said it like you're going to be, I thought you were just like Vaseline.
It's
crude oil.
It is basically like Vaseline. Let's talk about
seed
crude oil.
oils.
You want to talk about crude oil? It probably has some seed oils in it. But that's the thing that I'm saying is, like, it is so bad for me through the winters, though, that I would rather compromise and get ahead of it and not end up at the ER, not end up on antihistamines all summer, all winter. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally.
So, yeah, you guys can write me hate notes about.
No, I think most of our listeners who are like us, they are cognizant of crunchy things and green stuff, and they care about these things. They understand the ditches, and most of them most of you are probably already doing this. You have places where you go, I think this is the most effective place to spend the money on the more natural thing, or this part of our food budget. We're really gonna work hard not to have.
Yeah.
And what parts of your food budget, for example?
I was going to say, so some other things that you and I were talking about, like it is just so hard to stay in budget right now and eat the amount of protein that we need as a family. I'm trying to battle, keep my blood pressure low so I don't end up on medication. Yeah. And I've just kind of had to tell myself, it's better to spend the money on the meat than the money on meds in the hospital.
Yeah, totally.
So I do have limits, was what I'm saying. I'm not shooting myself up with vaccines. I'm not shooting my unborn child with vaccines. I'm not shooting my born children with it. I am avoiding the hospital as much as possible.
We genuinely are not like using seed oils, cooking. And because that actually, no, that matters.
I will even say, like, part of what was so scary with me with some of the histamine stuff last year is the meds actually stopped working. And what ended up working long-term, which feels so woo-woo, is just vagus nerve exercises, which is a totally free and crunchy thing to do.
Yeah, so we're not losing our crunchy credentials here.
No.
We're just saying, and I think seed oils is a good example. Like, we do not use seed oils. You come in our house, you will not find them in our house. When we go out places, which is not that often anymore, but we're thinking about that. And one of the reasons is, frankly, because lately, if we eat anything with seed oils in it,
you and Ari get really sick.
At least half of us feel horrible.
Yeah.
And the thing is, guys, I wish that this wasn't the case because I love seed oils.
Yeah, I wondered if it was you, but it is the kids too.
Ari too. Like, there's a couple of us
more sensitive to it.
We feel like garbage. So you start to notice those things, and we're kind of a little bit away.
Overall, I am not pro go get the crappy, $8 drugstore lotion.
No, we have standards, guys. But we're getting away. I want to come back to.
I know.
We've talked a lot about some.
I said this will be rabbit
product stuff. That's fine. People understand. I want to talk a little bit to close it out.
Okay.
About, I think a lot of what we're talking about actually is that discipline, competence, not excusing yourself type of thing. Mm-hmm. Let's talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, let's do
it. How could someone do a diagnosis of their home? And because a lot of the problem here is that you get, we've all had this experience. You walk into someone's house and you're like, whoa. Mm-hmm. Maybe they have like a lot of dogs or something, or it's just, wow, they don't clean their bathrooms, or like, whoa, it's crazy in here.
You're not an animal person.
It smells bad in here. Or you're just like, oh, okay. That's not, wow, that's pretty bad. But people, you get used to your own kind of like standard. Mm-hmm. So how could someone do like a stepping back and an assessment and then address these issues, especially in productive households where we're busy, we have lots of kids, where the stable genuinely is full?
So both of our parents were military wives. And when you leave military housing, you have to pass a white glove test, which means somebody comes through your military housing, literally runs their white glove through your sinks, your countertops,
your blinds,
everything. And if that is not a white glove, you don't leave that house. You cannot pass it off. You cannot move to your next assignment. You re-clean that house until it's done.
Both of our moms
are very
in totally different,
good at cleaning,
totally different personalities even, but they're both so tidy and neat. Mm-hmm. But also, my mom was never, I rarely was like, oh, Mom, you're over scrupulous about this. I genuinely, it was something that now I look back, I appreciate.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that was so nice.
And we have lived with both sets of our parents with our own children for periods of time, which was actually very helpful to me as a homemaker to be able to pick their brain and say like, okay, so what do you do here? What do you do here? So I would say, first of all, if you are aware of what your trouble areas are in your home, go find an older lady or a friend in your church that it has a naturally tidy house. Be open to hear them say they might use a conventional product to clean it, but learn from them, troubleshoot in those very specific ways. I think in addition to that, it's helpful to have lists. Like, you can find these anywhere. You could probably find them in a lot of different homemaking books. I consult Home Comforts a lot. Not necessarily for cleaning, but a lot of like laundering mishaps. I've consulted them a lot. Mm-hmm. But like, what is a true deep cleaning list for the spring? And don't neglect the windows just because you hate to do them. If that's what you hate to do, get the right tools to know how to do it better. Or like maybe you don't have a weekly checklist, you probably need to make a weekly checklist. And like I said before, something I just started doing, this is my second week doing it. I'm so thankful that we have a basement. Our basement is not super duper furnished. There's a lot of kids' toys down there. But I was realizing I just felt like this low grade anxiety thinking about the basement because it is where the kids go to play. I don't get down there a lot, but when I get down there, I'm like, holy cow, it looks like a bomb went off.
Yeah, it does.
And so I just told myself, like I did 2 years ago with the kitchen, I told myself, Lexi, this is a weekly task for you. You're not going to have anxiety about the basement when you can do something about it or train somebody else to do something about it. So like you need to be honest with yourself and know when you're being lazy versus when it's a lack of the right tools versus a lack of knowledge, sort of a thing.
Yeah.
Some really basic things like, so I get the bathrooms done every week. I try to get the floors done once a week. That seems to be really overlooked by people. I don't know why. It really bothers me though.
Unmopped floors really bother you?
Just dirty floors. That's why I wear
You
socks
inherited
constantly.
that from your mom.
Yes.
Because it's funny, the things like, for me, dishes in the sink is like
you were
a
a
nuclear.
shoes on family. You
Well,
couldn't feel it. We were a shoes off family.
But even just like dishes in the sink to me is like, oh, drives me nuts. Because my mom could not stand dishes being in the sink for more than like 5 minutes. But your family has been like, when I first encountered your family, I was like, what is their thing with the floors? There was this one time that I put a stain on the floor and I was like, oh no. What have I done?
Okay.
I thought like maybe I had actually.
And my mom will say she has relaxed since then.
Oh, totally.
And
like,
there are and I do not have those same standards. I've just told myself I'm not going to have those same standards.
Yeah.
But
the point, we inherit some of these things from our environment.
But this is the most old lady thing I could do. Let me boss you around for a little bit. I think your bathrooms need to be cleaned on a weekly basis. All of them.
Oh, I thought you were talking to me for a second.
I think your floors need to be cleaned on a weekly basis. All of them. If you're cooking everything from scratch too, probably your kitchens. And if not all of the bedrooms on a weekly basis, the master bedroom probably should be for the sake of your sanity. I think it's important to remember that first impressions are kind of lasting impressions. So think about like when you're having guests over, is your front door, is it swept? Is the door dirty? Could you paint the door? Could you get a new door? Like some of these things too, sometimes it really isn't a cleaning issue. Sometimes you just need to repaint the wall. And that sucks, but it's reality because you've lived in the house for 5 years and you've had 6 kids since then. I think like surfaces that are very obvious, like, I don't know, windows and we have all what's it called? We have all stainless steel here now, which kind of bugs me because it just looks dirty constantly because we live in our kitchen. So to me, this is also just knowing your house. Like, what do you have to prioritize whether or not you like to do it? I don't want my kitchen to look grungy when people come over. I know people know that I use it 24/7, but that's no excuse to just like have low standards, I guess. So, and this is, like I said, I'm going to be your bossy old grandma.
For a second there, I thought you were saying like, I'm about to boss you around like your grandma. And then you were talking to the
problem
listener.
is most of us, both of us also genuinely have cleany grandmas.
It's true.
A lot of people don't though. So they don't have people pointing this out to them. They don't, they just don't. And so, but this is also the easiest, cheapest way to make your surroundings more beautiful, guys.
Is to clean.
You probably can't afford shiplap or a brand new house, but cleaning you can afford. And I know y'all are about to say, but your kids are in school.
I don't think anybody was, but go ahead.
I'm sure some people are thinking that right now.
I think that any of them that know their kids in school would also know that most of them are not in school.
Most of them are not in school. I am also homeschooling, and we do hospitality a lot. So a lot of this for me that I've had to realize is I actually would run from the cleaning more when I homeschooled because I'd be like, oh, well, if we just stay out of the house, it'll be less clean. But the problem was I wasn't training my children to stay there. I wasn't training them. So they always wanted to be out too. They didn't really know how to. I mean, they did in some capacities, but they needed to learn to have at-home hobbies. They needed to learn how to clean alongside of me, and they needed to know how to let me have time to clean.
Yeah, and it takes time. When this is a classic leadership issue that's true in church leadership, business leadership, and home with kids, is that it takes more time up front to teach kids how to do something correctly. And so it's inconvenient to up front. It feels like you're not actually saving time or anything because you're not at first. But if you do take the time and discipline to teach the kids how to do the task correctly, on the back end of that, it's like a huge return, not only in time, which it literally is, but also in competence for them.
Mm-hmm.
So that now, as our kids are, and our kids aren't super old, but 11, 9, 7, we get some kids up in that age range.
Uh-huh.
Where now they're genuinely quite helpful when it comes to, we have a dinner routine, post-dinner routine.
Like
the boys take care of stuff.
Cleaning up after hospitality is a breeze now.
It used to be like Lexi and I would just go, okay, hospitality's over now till 9:30. We're going to be cleaning up. But now it's like Daphne, Ira,
they all have their little
Ari,
tasks.
go do your task. And then we have tasks too, but it's like 80% they are participating in and other chores, helping with the yard and the lawn and things like that. Now my boys help. And you really need to put the work in up front, though, to train them correctly and to then like discipline towards it and enforce it.
I think Misty always says, don't expect what you don't inspect. So if you tell your child to go clean the bathroom, but you have really low expectations and you never actually inspect to see that they did it well, you might be training them to smear pee around the rest of the bathroom because they don't know what order you even clean the bathroom in.
Yeah.
So you have to also have those standards in place. And something that some moms, I did this for a little bit actually, which was really helpful. I don't know why I'm not doing that. I don't know. Is having a checklist for areas that the kids are responsible for. So if you are assigning, and for me, I'll just be honest, I don't like my kids cleaning the bathrooms right now because we do have a lot of guests that come in and out of here. I don't want my guests to be grossed out because I made my sons clean the bathroom.
Yeah, and
so
they didn't.
That's just
like
something
they missed it.
I would rather them help with dishes, do something else, clean the windows, sweep the porch, something else. I will still handle the bathrooms right now. But an example would be telling them, like, clean the inside bowl of the toilet. The next thing would be wipe off the back of the commode. The next thing might be spray down the mirror and wipe that down. Like, you literally have to break it down step by step, but that's actually teaching them how to do it proficiently.
Yeah.
And maybe you guys don't know this. Again, Go Clean Co. had a lot of videos on how to make sure you're deep cleaning entire rooms that were helpful for the trouble spots for me to be like, okay, I'm going to watch this whole thing and then I'm going to tweak and let's go. So even for you, maybe you don't know how to do it proficiently. It's fine. Like, don't be embarrassed by it. Get better at it. Like, there are so many tools that the Lord has given us for free through YouTube, through Instagram. Just use them and use them effectively versus just consuming them and never doing anything with it. And again, I've talked about this. This is how I use social media. This is why I'm not super active on there. It's because I use it as an education tool for myself. So there you go. I can't think of other things, but.
Well, we're about out of time, so we should probably wrap this thing up. Summing it up, I think there are really three conclusions to point to because we went over a lot and we both ranted a little bit in this episode. But the first thing is that it's genuinely true. Don't hear us saying that those proverbs and sayings aren't true. Yes, the household for the people, not the people for the household.
Mm-hmm.
Where there are no ox in the stables clean. Don't make museum houses where no one can go in and no one can touch anything and you're grouchy and rude, but you have you have a clean counter, but you're grouchy and rude. Obviously, don't do that. It would be better if you'd have a dirty counter and a happy soul. But the point of the proverb as well, when it says things like, better is a dinner of herbs with laughing than the best would be the feast and the laughing. So as you gain competence and skill in your homemaking, you will gain the ability as you wisely manage your estate to have both, to have tidiness within reason and knowing it's kind of a Sisyphusian task. You're always pushing the rock back up the hill.
Yeah.
Normal maintenance and the cheerful heart. So that's number one. Number two is that genuinely in multiple directions, government intervention and marketing, you have to think carefully about some of the ways that you're being taught about products, how to think through these things. Don't be scared of using bleach. Don't be scared of using, we're talking about in all the stuff that we've recommended, very old products that have a lot of track record in the home that it'd be very convenient to a company that sells something that costs 10 times as much and doesn't work very well to get you to believe that the bleach is terrible. So think carefully about that. And the last part as well would be that you genuinely need to make sure that you're thinking about and actually assessing yourself on some of these things, because you do get used to your own thing. Think about it from an outside perspective. Think about like, wow, what would a guest think if they walked in here? What would they smell? What would they see? What would they experience? Would it serve them well? Would it be a human environment where they could enjoy being there and not be thinking like, oh, this is kind of gross? And if you do that, I think that you'll...
Can I say one last thing?
Yeah, that you'll end up serving your guests well, your kids well, your husband well.
I think it is
not killing yourself.
A self-interest thing too, in the sense that this is also reaping and sowing.
Yeah.
And what I mean by this is I've been spending some time in nursing facilities in northern Utah lately.
Yeah.
Because my grandma is recovering from surgery. And I was truly confused and horrified. And there were many times we'd leave together and you're like, what's wrong? Are you okay? You just look confused. I'm like, I am. I literally don't understand how these facilities have such low standards of care of the human body,
everything,
cleanliness, and beauty. I don't get it, but it really is a reaping and sowing of the generations. It's what happens when you neglect your children for your own pursuits. You don't pour into them. You don't teach them what is beautiful. You don't teach them what people are for. You don't teach them how to care for the body, keep a basically clean bathroom. And so what happens is that mom who refused to do her duty grows old, and the next generation that she neglected is not equipped to care for her well. And therefore they are not caring for them very well.
Yeah.
So that was a huge eye opener to me of like, no, this absolutely has got to be passed on if we want things to be different in our old age.
Yeah, that's very true. That's a great point. It ties a lot of these things together, the skill, the care.
It really has tied it all together for the body, physically, emotionally, mentally, everything.
Yeah, that's very, very good ending point to sort of put a point on it of why does this all matter in the first place?
Yes.
Teaching the people how to do it, caring for the people well.
Because the image of God in the person was created with these senses that matter.
Yeah, they were given to you to care for. So thanks for listening, guys. If you like the show, you can support us on Patreon and chip in a couple bucks a month to keep us going. Appreciate that for everybody who signs up there. And also, if you haven't heard already, but Ben and I wrote a book called Haunted Cosmos, Doing Your Duty in a World That's Not Just Stuff, that is about how to deal with the seen and the unseen, doing your duty as an image bearer of God, that I would commend to you. And say hi to Winnie if you heard her. She's just come into the room. Say hi to all of our listeners. But thanks for listening, guys. We hope this episode was helpful to you, and we'll catch you next time.